previous class, we had already discussed about the struggle of women, how they struggle to bring equality and how they make education possible for themselves. And we also discussed about the current status of boys and girls and the role of census in our country, India, and many more. So all these we discussed in our previous class. Now moving on another subtopic, that is women movement. Here we will see how women raise their voice against the inequality happening in the society and how they make people aware about the women's education and many more. So let's start our class.
Women's movement. Today in schools, it has become a common thing like boys and girls are joining. There were days when the girls are not allowed to think about education, which we discussed in the previous part of the lesson. Rajsundari Devi of West Bengal, who learned education secretly, midnight without knowing to the other family members, because it is believed that if a girl gets educated, that is, she gets bad thing or ill fate for her husbands and family. So such superstitious beliefs are circled around the girls' education. Now, moving on to understand. Nowadays, the girls have the right to study. Girls can go to schools. There is no one to stop a girl from going to school. Government provides certain benefits for them. Midday meal program have ensured many of the SC, ST, Dalit, Adivasi girls to come and join in the school, and there are no much dropouts because of the midday meal program. On the same time, legal reforms are made to stop the violence, the domestic violence, which has been exempted on the girls, like we have Rajsundari Devi explaining that from morning onward she is working till late night and still she don't have much rest at all. Like violence, domestic violence or health issue should be taken care. So the change did not came automatically. There was the time only when girls are considered as a machine who work for doing all household activities like cleaning utensils, washing clothes or taking care of the young one, like this. So the time passed on. We had dowry system where women now are targeted, and most of the young bride are being killed by the father-in-laws or their own in-laws or husbands with expecting more amount of money as dowry. So like this, there are various struggles which women had led to get today's present status of semi-equal status with boys. Earlier, they were very far from the normal status of being a human being. There were situations of sati system where the girls with the dead body of the husband were burned alive, and the widows has to shave off her head and put only white color dresses. So all these problems they have faced, and the change did not come within one day or 2 days. There were struggles led individually and groups of women led across the world various struggles. Today, we have the campaigns done against the harassments, create awareness to the people, the sexual harassments. If any sexual harassments are made, domestic violence is made at home, the court has given a clear judgment stating that no girl or woman can be meted with the domestic violence or sexual harassments or dowry deaths. Dowry deaths was up to 1980s a normal phenomena, but after 1980s this was very common in the news that particular family has killed their daughter-in-law. The in-laws were involved in this. So, expecting more money from the girl side, they started to torture the brides and started to kill them so that they can marry their son to another new girl, so that girl will bring extra money or dowry for them. Like this, expecting dowry and which catches the headlines for many days, created awareness, raised anger of the people. So women started to do public rallies, protest, create awareness to the people, conducting public debates, raising the concerns. So all these things ultimately led bending of the dowry system. Any family which demands dowry is a punishable offense according to the Indian Constitution new law which are passed. So like this we need to create awareness to the people and about their own right, their own laws, their own beliefs, what they have and how the equality can be attained. And as the time passed, now many of the men are also extending their support for the women's equality. Earlier, men used to torture women in most of the families. There was high restriction for the girls, but now broad mind, nature, and the awareness of the boys made the family to rethink and start to give some chance of enhancement of freedom for the women. So let us hope very soon the girls are treated equally with boys and we have equitable society. In this chapter, we have discussed that the word women change the world. Women's jobs are very restricted. In a class of 30 students, we generally assume that girls are eligible only to do certain service oriented jobs like nursing, like becoming nurse or becoming a teacher, etc. That's what we discussed in few opportunity. We also discussed the breaking of stereotype done by Lakshmi Lakra of Jharkhand, who now works as the first electromotive driver. So that's what we learned, break our stereotype mindset. And the second part, we learned that learning for change. Whatever we learn, we need to change, or when we are learning something which automatically brings change. Like for example, in a pottery wheel, as we discussed, the women works, she brings the mud, she brings the earthen, she put it in the pots, and the wheel is rotated by the men. So she is not considered as an important person in this pottery activity. And then coming to school was discussed in this learning for change. And what is the percentage between the boys education and girls education, that was that we discussed in schooling and education today. The National Sample Survey Organization of India conduct calculations of population, their education, their financial status, their caste, category, region, religion, everything for every 10 years known as Census. So, this census of 1960s give the data that only 40% of boys or men are getting educated, while it comes to girls, it completely falls down to 15%. As per 2001 census, it is 76% for boys, while 52% for girls. So, like this, still there is a lot of gap. We also analyzed what are the reasons why the girl child is getting more dropouts and why the girls are dropped out of education. That is because of the customs of the tribal people, which we call out as Adivasi groups or the Dalits, or in the Muslim community, where in Muslim communities we have only 3 years of formal education for them, while in other communities we have only 4 years. The one reason could be because of poverty, where due to poverty most of the families could not afford or send their children to school, and that 1% of advantage gets added up to the boys side, while the girls are asked to stay at home or to look after their household activities so that father and mother can go for work. While coming to the second important reason is the transport. The primary schools are located within the village, within the walkable region, but when comes to the upper primary and secondary schools, they are located for a group of villages together, which may be a 2 kilometer or above distance from their houses, and which creates the security problem for them. So father and mother will be going to the daily work and the children have to be taken care. At the same time, girls goes to other regions and comes back. She can have so many harassments or anything else, or ill treatment, discrimination, as we discussed in the Om Prakash Balmiki's case, a Dalit student. So all these factors got added up to the dropouts of the girl child, and that's what we discuss in schooling and education today. And coming to the women movement, today girls have a right to go to the school. Girls have a right to be treated equally. There are laws which are restricting the women violence or harassments at home or sexual harassments or anything. So we need to create awareness and campaign like what is thing that happening. We need to understand that this is not acceptable. It is legally a punishable offense. If anyone are torturing his wife or his sister or any girl, he is punishable. So we need to learn these things and create awareness to the people. When any girl faces these kinds of atrocities or anything, the other women are also not protesting and rising public rally and everything to protest such kind of happening. So which also triggered that confidence for the women that they can fight that for their equality. And after 1980s, the Dowry Provision Act was passed earlier, to that most of the young bride are tortured for get more dowry for them, and most of them were killed by their in-laws or husbands so that they can marry their son to another girl and get more dowry for them. So, like these cases all caught the headlines for many days, triggered for discussion, debate, rallies, public protest, and all these things. Finally, the government decided that we need to stop the dowry, and whichever family demands dowry is now a punishable offense. So, like this, for everything, especially for women, they have rising their slogans. They want to fight for the equality. It was not an easy task. There were days when the women were not allowed to get educated and believed that if women get educated, it brings ill fate for their husbands and his family. So all this stereotype use has to be broken down and to give equal status for boys and girls, and also give equal opportunity for girls also to grow equally with boys. So that's all we have in the lesson Women Change the World. So in our next class we will start new chapter.